माधव जविहारी जय माधव
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवार जी का चरण स्रोत से श्री श्रीमती सी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी प्रभु जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवार जी का चरण स्रोत से श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी अनंत गुरु ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Reading from Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter 31. Lord Kapiladeva's instructions on the movements of the living entities. Verse number 32. Yadi asabhi pati punah Sisnodara kutodyamai Astito ramate jantus Tamo visati purvavat Yadi asabhi pati punah Sisnodara kutodyamai Astito ramate jantus Tamo visati purvavat
Yadi asabhi patipuna
Yadi asabhi pati punah
Krishnodara krityodhyamai
Krishnodara kutodyamai
Astito ramate jantus
Astito ramate jantus
Tamo vishate purvavat
Namo Vishate Purvavat. Mataji.
Yadi asabhi patipuna Krishnodara
Krishnodara Astito ramate jantus Namo Vishate Purvavat. So Yadi, if Asabhi with the unrighteous, Pati on the path, Puna again, Sisna for the genitals, Udara for the stomach, Prada done, Udyamai whose endeavors, Astita associate, Ramate enjoys, Jantu the living entity, Tama darkness, Visati enters, Purvava as before. Translation: if therefore the living entity again associates with the path of unrighteousness, influenced by Sri Radha Gopijanavalaki, if therefore the living entity again associates with the path of unrighteousness, influenced by sensually minded people engaged in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment and the gratification of the path, he again goes to the hell as before. Purport by Srila Prabhupada key. It has been explained that the conditioned soul is put into under Thamisra and Thamisra hellish conditions, and after suffering there, he gets a hellish body like the dogs or hawks. After several such births, he again comes into the form of human being. How the human being is born is also described by Kapil Dev. The human being develops in the mother's abdomen and suffers there and comes out again after all these sufferings. If he gets another chance in a human body and wastes his valuable time in the association of persons who are concerned with sexual life and palatable dishes, then naturally he again glides down to the same Andhatamisra and Tamisra hells. Generally, people are concerned with the satisfaction of the tongue and the satisfaction of the genitals. That is material life. Material life means eat, drink, and be merry and enjoy with no concern for understanding one's spiritual identity and the process of spiritual advancement. Such materialistic people are concerned with the tongue, belly, and genitals. If anyone wants to advance in spiritual life, he must be very careful about associating with such people. To associate with such materialistic man is to commit purposeful suicide in the human form of life. It is said, therefore, that an intelligent man should give up such undesirable association and should always mix with saintly persons. When he is in association with saintly persons, all his doubts about the spiritual expansion of life is eradicated, and he makes tangible progress on the path of spiritual understanding. It is also sometimes found that people are very much addicted to particular type of religious faith. Hindus, Muslims, and Christians are faithful in their particular type of religion, and they go to the church, temple, and mosque. But unfortunately, they cannot give up the association of persons who are too much addicted to sex life and satisfaction of the body. Here, it is clearly said that one may officially be a very religious man, but if he associates with such persons, then he is sure to slide down to the darkest region of hell. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलम् Sri Guru Vaishnava Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathavidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Bhada Sarvana Lalita Sri Savitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Trinapati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudevi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, welcome to the Bhagavatam class today. So anyone who is new to the temple or to the Bhagavatam class? Okay. So I will try to explain whatever I understood from the purport and listening to senior Vaishnavas. Please excuse me if I come to any mistakes. You know, there are a lot of senior Vaishnavas sitting here who are very highly qualified than me. So I may be making mistakes. So please excuse me for any mistakes I may be committing. So here we are reading from the chapter of Lord Kapiladi's instructions on the movement of the living entities. You know, and this verse, before this verse, Lord Kapildev explains how we come into this material being, material creation. And there are very detailed descriptions of how we get into the mother's womb, and during the 9-10 months period, how much we suffer in mother's womb, which we don't even realize. But as a unborn baby in the mother's womb, how much we pray to the God, to the Lord, saying that, you know, I am committed so many mistakes I have committed, and now give me one chance when I get out of this mother's womb. I will perform devotional service. So when the conception of the baby in the mother's womb is happens, you know, in the seventh month, the child gets consciousness, and from that time onwards, there was so much of suffering that he experiences. Prior to 7 months, also the child may be experiencing, but he doesn't have the consciousness. So maybe it is much lesser. But from the seventh month to the 10th month, it's an unbearable pain that the child experiences. And once the child comes out of the womb and the mother delivers the baby, the human being kind of goes through so much of suffering. You know, as a childhood, although the parents are taking care of that child very well, he will have so many desires which are not fulfilled. And after that, you know, the child goes into the boyhood stage. Again, lot of struggles, as we all have experienced. You know, there was so much of uncertainty, so much of pain when one goes to the college, or you know, the educational system, whatnot, and then once get, you know, some type of upali, you know, a regular uh, occupation. But once people get into a specific job, they don't feel happy. You know, again, unhappiness keeps continuing. So here in this verse, you know, I think Prabhupada is you know, nicely explaining what we need to do so that we don't get into this type of cycle of you know, getting into the material world and again going back into the lower forms of life. Especially, what is the type of association we are getting? That is the most important thing. So if we don't get that type of you know, good association with the righteous people, then again, you know, we are kind of getting into the same cycle. And when we take care of only our, you know, genitals or very satisfaction of those lower forms of taste, right? So there are two types of hellish planets, you know, that we will go to, Andatamisra and Tamisra. So I was kind of, you know, reading the description of these hellish planets. So there is very clear description in Canto 5, chapter 26, how a sinful man goes into different hellish planets and how they are getting punished. So Sukadeva Goswami describes all these 28 hells in that chapter. But here Prabhupada mentions two, Tamisra and Andatamisra. So who goes into these hellish planets? You know, person who steals another money or wife or possessions, they go into this Tamisra planet. A man who takes someone and enjoys his life, you know, they go into this Andatamisra. So these planets, they have different variations or degree of punishments. And at the end of the chapter, Sukadeva Goswami explains it is not only this 28, I am explaining only this 28. There are hundreds of other planets also. So the amount of sins the person commits as a human being, it is unbelievable. So, but the thing here is what we need to take from this purport is how to avoid all these things. How to break that cycle. We are going through that repetitive cycle, and how we can avoid it. So Prabhupada explains here, um, it is like we get into this human body, praying in the mother's womb, saying that I will get out and I will do this, and all of a sudden we lose our memory. So why that is happening? When we get out of the mother's womb, we simply forget everything that happened with 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months before, and then we get into this world and we start trying to enjoy. So what type of enjoyment is that? It is you always try to enjoy independent of the Lord, and you try to satisfy your belly and genitals. So, in Nectar of Instruction, there is the very first verse kind of talks about this this particular thing. Vacho Vegam, Manasa, Krodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Udaro Masta Vegam. So there are these urges that we have. Vacho Vegam means the urge of the tongue, and Manasa, Krodha Vegam. So the urges of mind, Jihva Vegam, the tongue, and Udaro Masta Vegam, the belly and the genitals. So if one can control these urges, these habits, then the person is qualified to make disciples all over the world. Rupa Goswami makes this statement, in the very first verse of Nectar of Instruction. So here, the main important thing that, as far as Prabhupada purport here, is how to control this udara, the belly, urges of belly, and upasana, so genitals. So this is what kind of gives us all this misery. And for that, I think there are six activities that we should avoid, and 6 activities we have to do. Again, in the Nectar of Instruction, atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamantaha jana sangasya laulyam cha sadbir bhaktir vinastari. So the main thing here that we have to focus on is jana sangasya, that is associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. That is the problem. So the association of getting into with unrighteous people, that is what we have to avoid. And again, in the same Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami says, what are the things then we have to do? That is Sangatyaga. That is the main important thing related to this. That means abandoning the association with non-devotees. So these are the principles. So when we follow these principles, then whatever is in this verse, where we are saying we will again slide into with people who are unrighteousness, that we can avoid. And there are a lot of things that people do. People will say, I am a Hindu, I am a Christian, I am a Muslim, I am going regularly to church or temple or mosque every week. But if you don't follow these things, then you are not going to get out of that cycle. Um, Prabhupada, one time, he had this long conversation with one of the ministers in Australia. Some of you may already know that conversation he had. So the Minister of Welfare and Sports and some other designation he has. He comes and he want to talk with Prabhupada. His name was Dixon, and he walks in and he says, Prabhupada, how are you? I came here, and the question he asks is, I am most interested to come to you, and I have some responsibilities in Victoria. He's kind of referring to the government, the Australian government, which is situated in Victoria. And I want to talk with you about our young people. Um, we are not succeeding in many of the things with our young people. The problems are, we have drugs and alcohol and all sorts of unhappiness with our young generation. And I would like to know, your life indicates that, you got something which, we can take from you and we can implement. I'm interested to hear from you as to what you would believe might be done to encourage a greater acceptance in your areas of philosophy or religion. What are the instructions you can give to us? And Prabhupada responds to that saying that Cheto Darpana Marjanam, unless you cleanse the hearts of your young generation, nothing is going to happen. You can implement thousands of welfare programs or whatnot, but that is not going to help you. And he kind of shows these are my disciples, and they are following the four regulative principles. There are some girls there, and men and women, and they take a vow in front of the fire, saying that I am going to follow those four regulative principles, as well as I am going to chant to cleanse my heart, Cheto Pramajam. So that is the initiation they are getting, and nobody has any problem what you are telling me here, with your young generation here. But it seems like at one point Mr. Dixon says, oh no, that is not what I am talking. I am talking about how we can reform our educational system. You tell me how we can reform our educational system. And Prabhupada responds to that saying that the educational system, you don't need a PhD, you don't need to make your kids each kid a PhD to reform your educational system. That is not the point. You have to do three things, to educate your people. The first thing is mantravat para dareshu. That means you have to teach them how they can treat every woman as their mother, except their wife. That is the first thing you have to teach them. The second thing is paradraveshu lostrava. If they find some money on the street, they have to treat it as a garbage. They should not seek other people's money. That is the second thing you have to teach them. The third thing you have to teach them is Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu. That means they have to treat everyone as part of themselves. These, if you can teach these three things to your young generation, number one is treat every woman as their mother. That takes 99% of the societal problems. 99%. If you are following the current all the happenings in the society, if you switch on something, one person goes into a court and he's defending against a woman. That woman is kind of accusing him, and this man is accusing that woman. This is what is happening. So, if you can make that one change in your educational system, and then what is the other thing driving the people's downfall? If you look at every leader, everyone who is in trouble right now, the only thing that is the problem is they are seeking other people's money. That is the only problem. So teach that. And then the third one is, if you want to become a good leader, if you want to make your students or your young generation good leaders, the third thing you have to do is Atmavat Samabhutesh. They have to take other people, they have to treat them as their own. If they can do all these three things, then all your problems will be done. And the other thing is, they all the property, whatever you have, that is all Krishna's property. And he was making a suggestion to Dr. Dixon, saying that you have such a huge land in this country, in Australia, and you are treating that as your own. Why don't you multiply this food grain production or whatever it is by 10 times? You can do that, because the entire continent is basically desolate. Australia. They have so I think the entire population, if I remember correctly, was less than Canada's population. 10 million, 20 million there compared to 300 million living here. So you have so much of land. Why don't you cultivate that? Then the minister said, oh no, that is going to create a problem. And Prabhu asks, what's the problem? The problem is, if I grow so much of grains here and export to some other continent, the entire economy there will get spoiled. Oh, okay. So how is that? Oh, he says, if I export this grain, there the markets will crash, and that is what's happening. Really, if you look at Europe and all the other countries which are growing these grains, they actually take that in a shape and they dump it in sea every year. They have to regulate the commodity prices. To regulate the commodity prices, although there are hundreds of millions of people who are starving in other markets, other continents, other areas, what they do is they will dump the excess production in the sea. And Prabhupada told him, that is the problem. You are thinking that that is your property and you are not feeding the people who really need it. And if you do that, all the societal problems, all the problems, economic problems, all the problems that stems from these economic problems, they will all go away. So why people are addicted to meat or addicted to some other thing? Because of the way the land is being utilized. And he mentions to him, I was just in Africa, they have a vast tract of lands, and what they are actually growing there is tobacco, coffee, tea. These are the things they are growing there because that has the market. If you grow something like rice or wheat, the price you are getting paid is very less. So people are actually encouraging, they are using the land, and the crop that is coming out of that land is used for sexual activity. So the basic point Prabhupada is making here is you cannot solve a problem after you created the problem and it metastasizes into a cancer. So all you have to do is take preventive action so that it is the problem is not going to exist. Once the problem comes into being, you cannot control it. So that was the whole thing about the purport of this slogan is how we can avoid people can avoid the misutilization of their senses or misutilization of their palate, so that we are not getting into this repeated birth and death situation. So there are other things that Prabhupada kind of talks with him, how he can improve the situation. But at the end of the conversation, it is not really sinking into him, and he asks a question, Prabhupada, are you really kind of watching TV? Are you reading the newspapers, magazines? And Prabhupada says, no, I am not. And then how you are getting updated with all the current affairs and whatnot? And he says, we have books. The books we have, the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, are all the scriptures. You don't need to read a magazine to actually find out what's happening in the society. All the things Prabhupada was talking in 1970 with that Minister of Welfare, those are the things that are happening now. So you will know what is happening now, what is happening in future also by reading these books. If you read your newspapers as well as your magazines, you will know what is happening only now. So that is the difference between our books and your newspapers and magazines. Okay, so then he was completely perplexed, and he asked the question. Then how you folks are trying to survive. You don't have any income or anything like that. Then he says, we are basically minimizing our necessities, and you see this temple now. It has only two chairs. Those two chairs are for people who like who can come and sit. We all can sit on the floor. We can we can all have only two dresses every year. We buy only two dresses. So our necessities are very minimal, and we kind of try to educate people on the same lines. So that is what you should do. If you want the real true welfare of the people, this is the solution. And he kind of makes a comment. Prabhupada makes a comment saying that we are not actually cooperating. We are non-cooperating, and he gets perplexed and said, "Non-cooperating? What do you mean by non-cooperating?" And Prabhupada says, "Non-cooperating." Then a disciple, Prabhupada's disciple, steps in and says, "We are non-cooperating in the sense we are not cooperating with your present system. The cooperation you seek is you want people to go and gamble, you want people to go and drink, you want people to go and do prostitution, you want all these things, and we are not cooperating. That is what we mean by non-cooperating. So this is what the the essence of this, Sisnodara Parayana Krishna Nahi Maya. So you don't get Krishna if you do this, Sisnodara. So if you are really focusing on your belly and genitals, and if you are really going after woman, that is the end of the story. That is where you go to Tamisra and the Tamisra. So that's the point, the whole point that Prabhupada was making in that conversation. Very illuminating, really goes to the heart of this purport, saying that this is this is the root cause of the problem. And it is so beautiful. Bhagavatam kind of gives this, um, you can say the perfect answer for all the problems. But the only problem we are currently have is people do not apply that, and the problem kind of grows, and then you have a real problem where people come and say, what I can do? You cannot do anything about it. So if you take the current situation, especially in this country, for that matter, any other country, the country where we live here, the problems we are struggling. If you open the headlines, the first headline is the people getting killed every day due to gun violence. That is the top problem. The other problem, people crossing the border like millions, and you have the left, you have the right. They're kind of fighting. That fighting has been going on for the past 50 years. No problem, no solution for this problem. And Prabhupada gave all the solutions back in 1970, 1965, but no one is implementing. The only problem is no one is implementing. You have the answer, but you are not implementing. Um, so the essence of this is this purport is asat sangha tyaga. So we had to reject the asat. Asat means it is Prabhupada explains what asat means. Stri sangi. He says people who are attached to woman, that is asat sangha. So don't even go to those people and don't even associate yourself with this type of people, right? Why Prabhupada stresses on that one is Bhagavad Gita has that linkage. The linkage here is the first problem is Sangat Sanjayate Kama. So we contemplate on the objects of the senses. What is that object of the senses people have? That is woman. Right? And then that creates a problem, develops attachment, and that attachment turns into lust, and that lust turns into anger. So it's a Bhagavad Gita, they clearly, nicely explain where is the problem, how it starts. Now, once you have the anger, what happens? You have the delusion, you have the memory loss, bewilderment, and that is the memory loss. So going back to Kapil Dev's explanation, the soul kind of traverses and goes into mother's womb. Mother's womb experiences unlimited pain, comes out, and there is loss of memory, completely lost all the things that happen, right? And then when you lose the memory, you lose the intelligence. When you lose the intelligence, you are going back to square one. So this is the linkage that we have to always kind of think why it is why we are not able to remember, why we are kind of getting into the same cycle repeatedly, birth after birth. So the only thing that we can do is have good association. Prabhupada mentions the best association we have is, coming to the temple, associating with the devotees, and the ISKCON principles, founding principles, one of the founding principles is to create that atmosphere for the devotees to flourish. So with that, I will end the session here. So please again forgive me if I have spoken anything wrong. ग्रंथराज भागवतम की जय श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. Any questions? Anything I have misspoken, you can kind of point out and correct me also.
Guruji, I have one question, Guruji. I really appreciated your class. Very inspiring, very instructive on so many aspects. Thank you, Guruji. It's really very indebted to you for such nectar. So you told those three principles to see all women as mother, to not to be envious or not to steal others' property, and the third is to treat others Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu. Right? So that last principle I was thinking on that that yes, that kind of consciousness is possible on the pure stage when one can understand just by looking at someone, or even not by looking at someone, understand their desire, their etc. Like spiritual masters, we've seen that they exhibit that kind of awareness. So to cultivate that awareness in the conditional stage is very helpful in maintaining relationship with devotees and getting more and more blessings from devotees when you can actually please them in whatever way possible. So can you please illuminate or enlighten me on how to apply that principle?
I would say it is not even a principle, it is a process. So, it is kind of evolving. You have to develop that gradually. It is not going to happen, in one day, right? The best thing, again, the mantra we need to remember is Cheto Darpana. So if we keep chanting and if we cleanse our heart, automatically you will start looking at other people on the same level what you have, but you have to practice for that. I am not at that stage yet. I am maybe starting with that instruction at this point, but it is all chanting without any emphasis. That will take us to that ultimate goal. I hope answered your question.
Thank you.
Just want to add what Prabhu, I think, in general communication also we say, right? Like, I would like to treat others the way I would like to be treated, right? So that's kind of the starting point of just being human, that you don't treat others badly or wrongly. Atmavat, what is the Sanskrit?
Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu.
Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu. Every living entity, one should look at as your expansion or yourself. So that's the foundational principle of you treat others, and that's how the compassion and the not eating animals and all those other things comes into that play. That you unnecessarily don't harm anyone, like, because it's expansion of yours, so you don't want to be killed for somebody else's food. So why are you killing somebody else? So that's when the beginning point. So I just wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Thanks so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think Prabhupada, in the same conversation, at another point, there is a discussion about, how about the meat eating, right? So Mr. Dixon asks him about the meat part of it, and why you are offering only vegetarian dishes in your temple to Krishna? And Prabhupada's answer was, we are not vegetarian and we are vegetarian and as well as we are non-vegetarian. It doesn't really matter. What Krishna wants, we offer. If tomorrow Krishna tells us that it is kind of, he wants meat, we will offer meat. So it is not a question of we being vegetarians or non-vegetarians. That is not the point. What Krishna wants is what we want, right? So the killing, the animal killing part of it, and all the discussion that's going on and whatnot. No, that is irrelevant for the sake of the vegetarianism and whatnot. Any religion, whether it is Muslim religion or Christian religion or whatnot, they also have certain principles, certain things that they do so that they are not harming. For example, they have this fasting in a specific month, Ramadan or whatnot, and even Christians they have what a dry January, and certain what Lent or something like that, where they only keep the meat for poor people. So you have all those things in other religions too, but the only thing that they are not doing is they are not completely fully applying that. It is your convenience. I think in one of the lectures, Nopal Maharaj says that when he was around 4 years old, one of the priests comes to their house and they ask him, what do you want? What do you like to take? And he says, wine. And Rupa Maharaj's elder sister, she said, is that okay? And the priest says, oh, in moderation. In moderation. So when people say in moderation, where it will stop? You will say, oh, wine is in moderation, woman is in moderation, everything is in moderation, right? So you can apply the same principle to everything. So that is not the thing that you really look for. You look for the complete application. It is not the application you conveniently apply only for yourself and you start enjoying your senses, right? So that is the whole principle in this purport. How to go about it. Harish. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.